Welcome, Agne. It's a great pleasure to have you here as a long-term colleague and as a person who dedicated 20 years to Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Management product. Today we are going to talk specifically about this onboarding stage and the most critical phase within the entire finance and supply chain management development type of the projects, which are long-term, extensive. It's probably a kind of natural for a partner and a customer to try to cut some corners of the process. Yes, and this is probably one of the reasons why this onboarding phase is a kind of underlooked. What are your arguments? Why this onboarding stage it's so much critical for project success?
Onboarding is just one of the phases, the primary phase of the change management, into which we fall with every ERP implementation project. And what does it mean to implement the system, right? So for the customer, it means that they are not getting new technical environment, right? For them might be that the infrastructure might change from on-prem to cloud. It's already different gameplay. It means that people will have to do their job differently because something they were doing today, maybe in Excel, maybe in 5 different systems, suddenly it's in one, so everything is different. That means that they probably will have new roles and responsibilities that are going to be driven by the new processes, yes? And together with that, it means that they're going to be evaluated differently. The performance reviews are going to be differently. The KPIs are going to be differently. And it drives also quite an emotional impact on overall organization because we are people, we react to the change, and we cannot take things non-personally because our work, our daily task is personal. So this is fascinating how from IT, ERP implementation, we are moving into psychological environment of people's behaviors in the company. However, our stakeholders and the company, they have their ROIs, right? They want to improve processes, they want to increase profitability, they want to do modernization of the system and its fear. But then what the evil is in the details, and we are getting into the change environment and resistance. So statistically it's proven that if we just will install a system and we'll hope for the best, the percentage of the success is about 15%. But if we do things properly and go through the change management routines and keep everybody engaged and involved, success criteria is 95%. And because we constantly talk that our people is the main asset of the company, so why, when we perform so important change, we forget that they're supposed to be asked, involved, included in the process change, and actually ensure that they will accept the change that we are going through inside the company. Doing things properly in the change management routine is pretty much signature for success in reaching stakeholders' KPIs in the company.
Could you share some very practical tips, recommendations with the partners who are listening to this podcast? What to focus on during this onboarding stage, preparation stage? What not to forget in the process?
First of all, we have what we have to do. It's a task, huge project, maybe 2.5 years. But what we have to do, we still can split it in a small task. So it's contract-based, right? So what is in the contract, how we'll approach, how we'll manage it, the financial, the budget, right? The budget is formed from the scope. So what is a scope? What is a project plan, actually? What are the sequence of the tasks? But then, actually, how we will do it. So what's going to be the team? And the team is not implementation team like developers and consultants, but the team is customer team, the owner of the system team, partner team, another partner team, maybe a few freelancers that we have is a team. And everybody have their own personal roles and they have their own agendas. So that means during onboarding stage, we have to name who is a stakeholder, different level stakeholders, Also, what is a communication chart? How they will communicate together, and when they have to be involved in the project, when they have to be informed, what is the role of every single person, coming even from the employee who will be doing the job to the implementer who will empower the change, right? So all those things supposed to be named and written, also together with the risk mitigation plan that is very normal, right? So first of all, when we see a global environment, different countries, different people, different roles in different stages of the project, so that means people have to be informed when they will have to participate, what is the role, and how they will engage in the project and change and implementation.
Projects vary very much. So from the implementation type to projects to migration to ISV solutions development. We also have managed services with all its beauty, yes. So are there some specifics related with the certain type of the project which is important to pay attention during the onboarding stage?
Thank you for the question, because yes, it is. Because if we would talk about the migration project, so that means customer already has experience. They even have expectations to the system because they are in it already. Maybe they're on-prem, now they're going to the cloud, but they're still in it. Nevertheless, most of the project is on the technical team table. So for about half of the time, it's like a black box with a black cat inside. So at the beginning, is everything fine, but then it feels like the customer becomes anxious because they don't know what's happening. So during the onboarding stage, it's very important to provide as much as possible information on the process. How is it going to be done? What is the role of the technical team? When partners will share the information together? When there's going to be possible to have hands-on into the system? And the most critical scenario is actually how testing process is going to be handled, because there are technical testing, process testing, UAT testing, how many times we'll do the testing. And usually customers are very anxious when they will see the system and when they know that they will be shown like after 6 months. So why they want to have the hands-on and how to manage the process and so on. So this is for migration. Then when we are in development, so development usually is already different approach, because we at the partner or even sometimes at the customer, we're supposed to have the owner of the product, right? So minimum viable product who knows what is the scope and is able to sign on the budget and budget changes and to manage the scope. Plus, they also have to have competent roles who are able to communicate business value towards development team who kind of creates the product. Including that usually in development projects, the project management and communication between different team members is overseen. So they take it kind of for granted. Even so, there are a number of stand-ups and alignments, a lot of stakeholders, and actually if taking a development project that is about 5,000 hours size, so for project management, 15% is fixed kind of state where you can start from. 15 and more. This is how much stakeholders management would take. And the managed services is already when customer is live. So that means the system has its own life cycle. We went through the primary change management cycle, and now we are in the system. But what does it mean for the partner who will support and will help the customer to live in the system? So first of all, the people who will support the customer have to have the knowledge. Because usually in our environment is that there is one team who implements, another team who supports. That means the knowledge transfer has to be made between implementation team or from customer team, IT department, and so on into managed service team. So there is a lot of documentation, process is supposed to be landed. And only this part of onboarding takes about a month. And then we are setting the stable environment. So after carrying the knowledge, that means customer has to feel that they are taken care of properly. They are sad because core team is leaving. the new team is coming, there is a little bit of mistrust. And that means that responsibility, primary responsibility, probably is still supposed to stay in implementation team, but the new team members already adding from the managed services team. So this stage, again, is about 3 weeks, 1 month to form the stability. After that, there is another stage where we're shifting responsibility, but the managed service team is still lacking a little bit of speed, of the knowledge, so there's supposed to be commitment from implementation team to stay beside, hold hand, and maybe to sort out about 25% of the issues to support this. And then there is the last stage, usually called stabilization, where already full ownership and work is in managed service team who's doing the job, but there's an alignment and feedback time. Is it working? How working? What KPIs? How we'll measure the progress and so on. So if in development or migration projects, the onboarding is about 2-3 weeks. So in managed services, it's about 3-4 months.
What about end customer onboarding? You mentioned end customer a few times. So shall we mirror a kind of similar approach while onboarding end customer? What's your recommendation?
We have to remember that it's multi-level environment, and this multi-level is coming from local development or consultants team, then is multi-partner team, and then the multi-partner team is going to the customer, and we all have our own relationships. Customer is the one who's ordering the music actually and who's paying for it. So that means customers people will go through the change. Customers people are the ones who will have to adapt new processes and new roles. So that means that customer first of all supposed to be empowered to feel ownership. Customer team has also supposed to feel engaged inside the change, because otherwise they will be resistant. So, of course, when implementation teams aligns in between, customer always has to be on the top of the things and informed and involved, and also supposed to understand what each person will do for the project in one and another stage. When they will be involved, what the value they will deliver to that particular project, building overall framework of the project implementation. So the customer has to be and timely informed and involved in different stages of implementation.
A very nice thought that you shared with me on the way to this conversation was about emotional well-being of people who work on such projects. And you said that through proper onboarding, thoughtful onboarding, as you called, partners can really reduce some stress, necessary stress, help teams to avoid some conflicts, and even to avoid people leaving companies during the project. That sometimes also happens. So can you elaborate on your thoughts about this human aspect in the onboarding?
The change overall is difficult for everybody, right? So even if we're changing to something, we are mourning something we had. So this is the basement where it comes, and it's very natural from human being just to be resistant for the change, very natural. Yes, and our goal here is really to implement it, just to make it as soft as possible to be successful. That means usually when people are facing the change, the first question is why? What is in it for me? What does it mean for me? Is it safe? If we just implement the system, make a meeting on Wednesday and on Friday going live, people are going to be pushed in the environment that they cannot accept, and the resistance will come together with that, because they don't know what they are, they don't know what they're doing, they even don't know what does it mean for them. All science and statistics says that for us to learn something new and to adapt to something new, it takes 42 times to repeat it. That means when we are in the long project run and you're just an employee, right? You know that something is happening for 2.5 years, and suddenly one day somebody calls into the meeting and says, now this is your new process, and you just first time see 100 different fields and some instruction in written. So, of course, you will not like it. Of course, you will even stop asking questions because nobody asks your question how you would feel about that, right? So that means involving the people repeatedly in the process by sharing, asking questions, explaining why something is important, how it will make their life easier, why it is important for them to be present and even testing, for instance, or in giving some feedback, or in designing the process, and so on, is more or less mission critical task to ensure that the people will be happy with the change.
Staying on this topic of communications
Yes.
that you admire, so I think we both agree that this is a very critical aspect for the project success, yes. And to close our conversation, could you share some very practical maybe tips and examples how to ensure this smooth communication in this complex setup, in this multi-team setup?
Yes.
So what would be your 5 cents?
I always like to say that there is never too much here and never too much we. So that means as soon as we understand different focus groups, I already named, right? So it's technical team that will be doing the job. Then there is the management, project managers team. Then there are managers like IT managers, and then group managers and stakeholders. Then there are stakeholders with a customer, different partner stakeholders, people who are actually making the decision and ensuring that we are on the agreement and on the alignment, right? So already 5 levels. By drawing the communication chart, so for instance, technical team has stand-ups every day, right? Where project managers maybe can meet twice or once a week to discuss where we are and have status reports and so on. Stakeholders, like everyone involved, maybe it's enough once a month, where project manager just drives through the progress, explains in what stage we are, what risk we had, how we solved them, where we are today, and actually for stakeholders also to feel that they are involved and they are in control of the change, right? Nevertheless, talking about the psychological environment that is probably that drives success of the project, we also have to remember mood boards, especially this is a job for the project manager, that at least every Friday they have to measure the temperature of the team, and we always have to remember that and managers and stakeholders and the owners of the project that we have to be very much agile. And agile means as soon as we see that something is going not the way we expect, or the people are not that happy anymore to be, or they're a little bit lost, or they were exchanging emails too much and there's miscommunication and so on, we have to escalate us up. And we have to change what's not working like tomorrow. And actually just to get back on where we are. Just not to kind of forget why we're here.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you for bringing all your insights today and bringing many arguments why not to cut those corners on the onboarding preparation stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, for conversation.